We're not even 3 minutes into this video and Nigel is just full on mask off, same-sex relationships are predatory to children. I think this actually breaches Ofcom regulations. He's just going to let his guest on his radio show just say that same-sex relationships are predatory to children. Talk Radio have broken Ofcom regulations, hatred and abuse section 3.2 and 3.3. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. TARDIS, and at time of recording this video, it is Friday the 15th of April. We are 2 days away from the upcoming Doctor Who Easter special, Legend of the Sea Devils, which looks set to be a swashbuckling affair with Chinese pirates. However, many fans of Doctor Who are looking forward to it to see if there's going to be any continuation in the relationship between the Doctor and Yaz, known online as Thasmin. In the New Year's Day special, Yaz, played by Mandip Gill, opened up to Dan, played by John Bishop, about her feelings towards the Doctor. Whether or not these feelings are reciprocated by the 13th Doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, we don't quite know yet. However, some cultural commentators have taken it now as a given that there will be a 13th Doctor and Yaz same-sex relationship in the upcoming Easter special. This clip was doing the rounds on Twitter. This is from the Twitter account by Jared Groves, responding to a Talk Radio clip with Kevin O'Sullivan, who is talking to Nigel Pawley, talking about a same-sex relationship in the upcoming Doctor Who Easter special. Ages ago, I did a response to a Talk Radio clip, once again hosted by Kevin O'Sullivan. You can check that out here. And I thought it might be a bit fun to go through Talk Radio, or otherwise known as Talk TV, I think that's their sort of like umbrella company, and actually watch the full 10-minute segment. Woke Doctor Who to have same-sex relationship with 6.9 thousand viewers, nice. And I clicked on the video to open it to watch it, and I'm the 69th, 100th viewer. So what we're going to do is that we're going to take a look at what Nigel and Kevin say about the situation proper. We're going to give them their dues, we'll give them the full 10 minutes, and we'll respond where appropriate. But just a quick plugs before we dive into the video proper. If you do like Doctor Who content, please consider subscribing, hit that like button because it really helps me out. And also, my last video at time of recording this was a documentary talking about how all the previous actors who played the Doctor were announced, because we're expecting the 14th Doctor announcement kind of any time now. And I'm wearing the same jumper, even though I recorded this like 2 months ago. So yeah, be sure to check out that documentary if you haven't already. And also, that video has been demonetized because of Content ID stuff, so I'm not earning any advertising revenue from it. If you do want to help to support this channel, you can become a patron, and if you become a patron of the Mr. TARDIS channel, you'll get instant early access to many of my videos while they go through the Content ID process. The latest video is a feature-length retrospective review of the 2016 Doctor Who spin-off Class. It will take a while for it to make its way through Content ID on YouTube, but if you become a patron, you'll get instant access to it. So without any further ado, let's take a look at Woke Doctor Who to have same-sex relationship from Talk Radio.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Sorry, I've not actually watched this clip yet. The world headquarters of common sense? Oh god, this does not bode well.
Is this a good thing, that the Doctor is going to have a lesbian love affair? Apparently this issue that comes out in Easter, the same-sex relationship between the Doc and her companion, her travelling companion, Yaz, will become more and more intense, and this is going to be a gay love affair out there in the outer limits. Do you think Doctor Who fans will like this?
Just a quick reminder before they start, the episode hasn't broadcast yet, they've not seen it. This could absolutely not happen in the story, but they are taking it as a given that it will happen, so just to give this video the appropriate framing.
I'm sure some of them will, Kevin, but it doesn't really sit very well. I don't know, the Doctor is meant to be 2,000 years old. It's a science fiction thing. It started out as a children's programme, early evening, and it had Daleks and cyber persons. But the Doctor has two hearts over the 2,000 years that he's been around. He's not really fallen in love with them. He's been more interested in sex.
Asexual. I mean, he basically has been above sort of human romances and affairs of the heart, whether it be homosexual or heterosexual.
Right.
The Doctor was never involved in that. That was part of his persona, strangely asexual, or not even strangely, just asexual.
Okay, I know that Kevin doesn't really care about Doctor Who, and neither does Nigel, to be quite frank, but this is, on the face of it, just completely incorrect. Like, the Doctor has had heterosexual relationships in the past before. You had Paul McGann in the 1990s as the 8th Doctor kissing their companion. You had David Tennant as the 10th Doctor in the 2000s, like, full-on kissing and having a love and pining for Rose Tyler over, like, 3 seasons. And even though Matt Smith's Doctor and Peter Capaldi's Doctor arguably had, like, asexual vibes to them, they still were in heterosexual relationships with River Song. Like, they got married during that tenure. So the idea that the Doctor doesn't take part in relationships, whether it be heterosexual or homosexual, is just on the face of it incorrect, but I get the sense that this is the least of this video's problems.
And now suddenly, she, the new female Doctor, looks like she's set to be a lesbian.
Yeah, I find it sits uncomfortable. Yes, it's fiction, it's drama. But if you think that over the years, from William Hartnell through to David Tennant, Matt Smith, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, there was something that it would have been slightly creepy if any of them had been, involved with some of their young companions. These were old guys and young people just out of their teens travelling the universe, all very innocent in those pre-Jimmy Savile days at the BBC. But if you start...
I don't know what the purpose is of the name drop. It feels like Nigel there is just trying to get some sort of jab at the BBC, but that has nothing to do with the current conversation. But anyway, let's not forget, in the late 1970s, the early 1980s, Tom Baker and Lalla Ward, who played Companion Romana, they had, instant on-screen chemistry, to the extent where the two actually got married behind the scenes. They did get divorced shortly afterwards, but that chemistry, that on-screen chemistry between the Doctor and Companion, even if it wasn't, in the text, was absolutely there, so I don't really know what he's complaining about here.
It's, again, taking a basically innocent programme and having to hammer home a point. And whether it's about same-sex or anything else, the BBC, the writers, and, the right-thinking people, or so-called, will be celebrating the fact that this is breaking down another barrier. I would say it's quite sad. This show was about kids hiding behind the settee from Daleks and cyber people. But now they're going to be hiding behind the settee because the Doctor's chasing them in a predatory way. I just think that...
Whoa. What the fuck? What? So... Nigel thinks that having the 13th Doctor have a lesbian relationship with the Companion is cause for children to hide behind the sofa for fear of the 13th Doctor preying on them. No, we're listening to that again.
But now they're going to be hiding behind the settee because the Doctor's chasing them in a predatory way. I just think that children's television used to be between 4 and 6. You'd have Blue Peter.
So yeah, he outright said it. That the Doctor having same-sex relationships on screen is inherently predatory to children. And we know that he means same-sex relationships because we've talked about this before. The Doctor has had relationship with companions in the past. It's been quite explicit in the text as well, full-on love and pining and kissing and on-screen romance and stuff like that. So in the context of this being a same-sex relationship, which firstly kind of does make sense for the Doctor's character, if they spent thousands of years as a man, they could be straight, having heterosexual relationships. Just because their gender's changed doesn't mean that their attraction, their preferences have not changed either. So it would be completely in line. But Nigel here just saying that same-sex relationships are predatory, just by their nature, and that kids will be scared of the Doctor if she has a relationship with the Companion, specifically the female Companion and the female Doctor. This clip was not amongst the clips being circulated on Twitter, this line here from Nigel, and this is absolutely astonishing. We're not even 3 minutes into this video, and Nigel is just full-on mask off, same-sex relationships are predatory to children. I think this actually breaches Ofcom regulations. So here we go, the Ofcom website, Section 3, Crime Disorder, Hatred and Abuse, and there's a section down here for hatred and abuse. So material which contains hate speech must not be included in television and radio programs or BBC ODPDS except where it's justified by the context. Broadcasters' attention is drawn to Section 22 and 29F of the Public Order Act of 1986, which sets out criminal offences arising from the broadcast of material stirring up hatred relating to race, religion or sexual orientation. Section 3.3, material which contains abusive or derogatory treatment of individuals, groups, religions or communities must not be included in television or radio services or BBC ODBS except where it is justified by the context. See also Rule 4.2. Okay, so what is the context in which hate speech is allowable according to Ofcom? The genre and editorial content of the programs or series and the likely audience expectations. For example, there are certain genres such as drama, comedy or satire where there is likely to be editorial justification for including challenging or extreme views and keeping with audience expectations, therefore is provided there is sufficient context. The greater the risk for the material to cause harm or offence, the greater the need for more contextual justification. So basically, if you were doing a drama like It's a Sin, for example, about same-sex relationships or LGBTQ plus issues, then if you had a character be called a racial slur, that is justifiable context because it's part of the drama and the conflict of the story, and it would also be accurate depending on the context of the scene. Other context, the extent to which sufficient challenge is provided, the status or position of anyone featured in the material, the service on which the material is broadcast, and the likely size and composition of the potential audience, and likely expectations of the audience. So the main thing I'm seeing here, the extent to which sufficient challenge is provided. So if Kevin does not challenge Nigel on this assertion that same-sex relationships are predatory, Talk Radio have breached Ofcom guidance.
no pretense, it's for kids. And then it's blurred.
I think Nigel is frozen. Is he back?
Did Ofcom take him off the air? But okay, will
we're
he
going to get Nigel back?
do anything?
Of course, the Supremo of Doctor Who at the moment is Chris Chibnall.
No, he's not. He's not going to talk back. He's just going to let that sit. He's just going to let his guest on his radio show just say that same-sex relationships are predatory to children. Talk Radio have broken Ofcom regulations, hatred and abuse section 3.2 and 3.3. And remember, Kevin and Nigel are talking about a hypothetical situation here because it's not been broadcast. Legend of the Sea Devils has not been broadcast yet. Kevin and Nigel here hate LGBTQ plus people so much that they're willing to break Ofcom regulations at the mere implication or hypothetical of it. Sorry, we're going to continue the response in a minute, but I actually think that this is worth complaining to Ofcom about. So if you go into the Ofcom website, ofcom.org.uk/complaint, complain about TV, radio, or on-demand services, a program I saw or heard, another TV channel or radio station. Program title, data broadcast, time of broadcast. Well, we know the time of broadcast because it's at the bottom of the screen. This happened at like 1950. And no, not the year 1950, although you probably wouldn't be mistaken if you thought so. But yeah, 7:50 p.m. on Kevin O'Sullivan's radio show. If you look at the Talk Radio schedule here, yeah, so Kevin O'Sullivan on Talk Radio on Tuesday, the 12th of April. Your complaint and description. Tell you what, folks, I'm going to write out a complaint here, and then I'm going to copy and paste it and put it in the video description. If you folks wanted to, just in case you folks wanted to go to Ofcom and complain about this flagrant hate speech happening on Talk Radio that went uncontested by the host Kevin O'Sullivan here, I recommend maybe changing the language a little bit so it's not just an obvious copy and paste, use your own language if you want to, put in your own arguments if you want to. Honestly, I expected to just open this video and laugh at these people, but Nigel, within 3 minutes, just went full mask off. Kevin did not do anything to challenge him. They broke Ofcom regulations in order to have this conversation. So, yeah, gloves are off, you dickheads.
But now it's they're going to be hiding behind the settee because the doctor's chasing them in a predatory way. I just think that... Just look at television.
Just look at Kevin during this as well. He doesn't even pretend to give a shit. He's not even looking at the camera. He's just sort of drifting. He's looking up in the air as Nigel speaks. He's what's he looking on the floor for? His brain, which is obviously fallen out.
Children's television used to be between 4 and 6. You'd have Blue Peter, no pretense, it's for kids, and then it's blurred.
I think Nigel is frozen. Is he back? I saw him moving again there. We're going to get Nigel back. Of course, the Supremo of Doctor Who at the moment is Chris Chibnall. He was the man in charge of that Whodunit. What was the name of that Whodunit?
Broadchurch.
With David Tennant. Forgotten the name now. Broadchurch. So he was in charge of that. He switched to Doctor Who. He's pretty woke himself, and then later on...
Yes, famously woke Chris Chibnall, who gave us the ending of Kablam, which basically licked the boot of Amazon.
He switched to Doctor Who. He's pretty woke himself, and then later on, later this year...
Are you going to give any examples of the wokery? You don't have a guest to entertain, so you could actually just list off this information if you had it, of course. You don't, but you could use this time to pretend you gave a shit, Kevin.
The Doctor will return to the auspices of Russell T Davies, who's even more woke than Chris Chibnall.
Okay, once again, how is he woker than Chris Chibnall? I'm going to need some reasons. I'm going to need some examples here. But also, in my last Talk Radio response, I'm pretty sure it was Kevin who was singing the praises of the Russell T Davies era, who was talking about episodes like Voyage of the Damned, where they weren't political. Apparently, it was a stupid argument then. I don't even think Kevin believed that. I don't even know if he believes this. I think he's just throwing the word woke in because that's just the buzzword. That's just the dogma. It's amazing how Kevin, over the span of, when did I record that? A year and a half ago, has just flipped from Russell T Davies, the good old days, Russell T Davies is great, to now, Russell T Davies is even woker than Chris Chibnall. He can't just, have a middle ground opinion on it. He has to escalate it. He has to say Doctor Who is super woke now. Doctor Who is going to be even woker in the future because his career kind of depends on it. Perpetual boogeymen, just finding another dragon to conquer, finding another ghost to bust.
You know, this why, Nigel, has Doctor Who become the sort of epicenter of BBC wokery? We're used to the BBC being right on and trying to be thoroughly modern about sexual issues. I've got no problem with it. I'm just wondering.
First things first, you're still not allowed to attend gay pride parades if you're a BBC employee. So, you know, the BBC aren't a bastion of woke LGBT culture, by the by. But also, the BBC didn't make Doctor Who, like, the epicenter of LGBT issues. You did. Like, it's not even a confirmed thing that it's going to be a reciprocated same-sex relationship between the 13th Doctor and Yaz. The episode hasn't broadcast yet. You made it the epicenter. You made it the issue. Like, the BBC, as far as I'm aware, have done hardly anything to allude to that in terms of the promotion of the story. You look at the trailer for Legend of Sea Devils and it's all about Chinese pirates, it's about the Sea Devils, it's about the swashbuckling, your seatbelts and stuff. Like, none of that is from the BBC's end. You have done that. You've created the boogeyman. When it comes to LGBT topics on the BBC, you've got, you know, shows like RuPaul's Drag Race UK, you've got This Is Going to Hurt, which stars Ben Whishaw as a gay doctor, Gentleman Jack, Killing Eve, Boy Erased, A Strictly Come Dancing. They've had some same-sex dancing partners. What's funny is that people like Kevin will try and say Doctor Who is dying, no one's watching Doctor Who, no one cares about Doctor Who. However, apparently enough people care about it to get riled up about this stuff, which is why this is a video segment on Talk Radio. This is something that was dedicatedly uploaded to the Talk TV channel. This wasn't just something they talked about in one of their like hour-long shows that they put on YouTube. They actually thought, yeah, people do care about Doctor Who, so we'll make it a segment. A bit of an own goal there. They know that people do care about Doctor Who and people do watch Doctor Who. That's why they're talking about this. It's why they're willing to break Ofcom regulations to talk about it. So yeah, the BBC didn't choose Doctor Who to be the front and centre LGBT progressive show. You did.
Why they've chosen Doctor Who to be the epicenter of all of this. It seems like a strange programme through which to direct all of this same-sex relationship stuff.
Well, in actual fact, it possibly isn't that surprising. Russell T Davies did It's a Sin. He's a very out gay guy. There are a lot of fans who are gay. So from the point of view of actually hitting the adult fan base, it's not a surprise. Disney.
Wait, so okay, that was a hell of a pivot. But yeah, just bringing up, Russell T Davies is gay. So considering that Nigel a minute ago was saying that same-sex relationships are predatory to kids, we know that him saying Russ T Davies is gay is not like just a descriptive. It's clearly meant to be like Russ T Davies is gay. Yeah, this guy, this is the problem started with him. Like, Nigel ripped off the mask 3 minutes in. He's got nowhere else to go now.
Disney. As we spoke last week about Disney going woke and having to hammer home. I find the innocence of childhood being lost, actually, that the fact that you have to sexualise a programme like Doctor Who rather than just have scary monsters and a bit of escapism.
Okay, first things first. Kids can be gay. Kids can also be trans. The science and the data is pretty clear-cut at this point after decades of research. Like, we know that children tend to discover and find their gender identity between the ages of like 3 and 5 years old. They tend to discover their sexuality between the ages of like 5 and 7. So some kids are gay. Some kids are trans. Some kids are bisexual. Like Nigel here trying to say, think of the children, think about the innocence of children, which firstly is just a cop-out argument. If that's all he's got, the innocence of children, then he's basically conceded the fact that he has no other arguments, he has no other points. Think of the children has been basically a hollow buzz term for reactionaries like Kevin and Nigel for centuries now. The people who are anti-women's suffrage, who are anti-women voting, said, think of the children, you need women in the household. You don't want them getting involved in politics. You don't want them getting involved at work because they need the mother at home. Think of the children. You don't want black people in schools, teaching your kids. You want to keep things segregated. You got to think of the children. You don't want gay people on TV. Think of the children. It's so innocent, the children, and also the trans people. You don't want to be putting these ideas in the children's head. Actually, Talk Radio have gone backwards because they're not talking about trans issues. They're talking about gay issues. They're talking about LGB. These folks are literally decades away from the conversation. Like, this isn't even the first time in the show that they've had same-sex attractions. We talked about this on live stream the other week. Survival, written by Rona Munro, which was the last story of the 1980s before Doctor Who got cancelled, where Ace is exploring her sexuality in that story, and it's very much not the subtext. The 9th Doctor kissed Captain Jack at the end of Series 1. The 10th Doctor and Jack once again had flirty banter at the end of Series 3. Clara was bisexual. We had Bill, played by Pearl Mackie, who was a lesbian in the show. Like, Doctor Who has trodden this ground before. Civilization has not collapsed, but here's Kevin and Nigel, literally decades behind in the conversation. Whether or not Doctor Who has got same-sex relationships in it is a decades-long conversation that's been and gone. Like, these guys are just trying to bring it up now to stoke culture war nonsense. They don't care about Doctor Who, they just care as using it to get across their political ideology, which, according to Nigel and Kevin here, is vehemently anti-LGBT. These guys complaining about this stuff being forced onto kids or whatever, it is basically identical to those complaining about Star Trek in the 1960s having the first interracial kiss on American television. Like, there is no difference between people like Kevin and Nigel here and the people getting upset in the 1960s. Nothing has changed. 50 to 60 years of societal progress, and conservatives have just been immovable. Their arguments have not changed, their positions have not changed, their rhetoric has not changed.
Yeah, and also don't forget, Doctor Who is supposed to be a children's programme.
That's right.
It's a kids' sci-fi drama. So you have to ask this question. We were doing this story last night. At what age is it appropriate to start assailing kids with these adult issues, lesbianism, homosexuality, sexuality, heterosex? At what age is it appropriate? So,
firstly, I like how he threw in heterosexuality just at the end, just to cover his own bases there. But also, it's not an adult thing. Kids can be gay.
If we've got 8-year-old kids watching Doctor Who, is this appropriate?
Well, we would probably think it isn't, but as I say, people who have an agenda probably think there's no age is too young. I think you could write a Doctor Who episode, you could write a series, make it very entertaining for kids, very scary, without having to make some political point. And it's just the tedium of television shows now, Kevin, having to have a political point, having to hammer home a message, having some good message to go across, rather than just entertaining us.
So basically, what Nigel wants from entertainment is incredibly boring. He wants media without a message, he wants media without a point, he wants media that doesn't say anything. Like, I don't think he actually believes this. I think he's only saying this because the media in question that he's talking about is saying stuff that he does not agree with. But he's talking about a show which has had decades of politics, which has had decades of trying to make political points and political messaging. Because all art is political, all media is political, because it is made in a political environment that is influenced by the social, economic factors of the time that it was made.
On the props and the green screens and stuff to make the monsters better, I think the show would be better rather than worrying about what's in the script.
And let's not forget that
rather than he's basically saying, yeah, story, script, dialogue, characters, whatever, just get bigger green screen. Nigel just wants very boring media. He just wants homogeneity in his media. He just wants boring. He wants writers and directors who have nothing to say, who have no passion behind what they're wanting to talk about or trying to influence the world. Nigel, he just wants a big green screen. Nigel just wants the media equivalent of just rattling your keys in front of him. This man is so quantifiably stupid that it makes me wonder why our ancestors even bothered to climb out of the primordial slime. But going back to Kevin's point as well, Kevin's question about, forcing heterosexual relationships on kids, like, main characters in Doctor Who have kissed and fallen in love since the very first companion in, the 1960s. Susan, the very first companion, the Doctor's granddaughter, left in the show because she fell in love with someone called David. Jo Grant, Leela, the Brigadier in the classic series, they had love stories, they had relationships on screen, heterosexual relationships. Rose Tyler in the revival was bouncing between partners. Martha Jones got married twice. We met Donna Noble at a wedding. Amy and Rory were a married couple in the TARDIS. Clara, River Song. The show is bursting with heterosexual relationships. However, Kevin and Nigel don't seem to have an issue with those. If they did, they'd bring them up. The show has decades half a century, more than half a century of precedent, which gets no mention here.
And let's not forget that arguably, the most woke move in the history of the Doctor. Don't forget, Doctor Who didn't used to be woke at all. It was just a fun and rather cheapskate sci-fi drama that Michael Grade, was it back towards the end of the 80s, was it? He thought it was
89.
89 is such rubbish that he axed.
So in 1989, the script editor at the time was Andrew Cartmel, whose stated goal with his scripts on Doctor Who was to bring down the government. He made stories, lampooning Margaret Thatcher in like Survival and in The Happiness Patrol. He talked about the rise of fascism in England in the 1960s. There's that great scene in Remembrance of the Daleks when Ace finds the no coloured signs on the window and stuff like that. Was Doctor Who in the 1980s. This is the period of Doctor Who that Kevin is saying, let's go back to that time. And it's nothing like he's describing. It's a fantasy. It's a fiction within the fiction. It is delusional. Kevin is delusional. But let's go back to his first point there, talking about the wokeness of the Chibnall era.
Entertaining us. If they spent a bit more money on the props and the green screens and stuff to make the monsters better, I think the show would be better rather than worrying about what's in the script.
And let's not forget that arguably, the most woke move in the history of the Doctor. Don't forget, Doctor Who didn't used to be woke.
Oh, he didn't even start the point. Okay, so he started a point, went on a delusional tangent, and he's not actually finished the point yet.
But it never used to be the sort of woke central place that it is now. But thanks to Russell T Davies and now Chris Chibnall, it has become that. But the most woke move, of course, was for the first female Doctor to come about. So suddenly Jodie Whittaker plays the first female incarnation of the Doctor, which of course is
So Kevin here just has an issue with the gender change. Like, I'm glad that he's so upfront about it, that just women in leading roles in TV is just woke and therefore bad. Like, it's refreshingly honest from Kevin. Because remember, the Doctor is a fictional character who changes appearance, who changes their entire body, and in this one just so happened to have become a woman. In the show, and Doctor Who Regenerations with the casting, is just temporary. Like with Peter Capaldi, the Doctor just had a Scottish accent for like 3 or 4 years. Like, that is temporary. The Doctor will become a woman for 3 or 4 years or 2 incarnations or however long they decide to keep this streak going. Honestly, I think there's a lot more to Jodie Whittaker's casting and the portrayal of the Doctor to expand like the casting of Doctor Who in the future, and that's casting a northern woman from Huddersfield who doesn't fit cleanly into like, supermodel gorgeous. She's not afraid to like contort her face to be ultra expressive. Like, I think Jodie Whittaker is one of the most expressive Doctors that there's ever been, up there with like Patrick Troughton and Sylvester McCoy. She kept her Huddersfield accent for the role, following in the footsteps of Christopher Eccleston, who was really happy and proud that he was able to keep his Salford Mancunian accent for the role, especially, when growing up he went to drama schools, everybody was RP, everyone was received pronunciation. And I think it's great to have, like with Christopher Eccleston and Jodie Whittaker, a sci-fi hero, the smartest person in the room, this time-travelling hero. You spout off reams and reams of technobabble with a working class accent. Christopher Eccleston has talked quite recently, he's talked very intelligently about how these doors for working class actors are now being shut as, actors are being priced out of London and higher education. So you've got all of these socio-economic political undertones that go into casting decisions. But Kevin here just hones in on women bad. Like, Kevin's takes on media and culture are so bad that the only explanation is that he watched a Nadine Dorries interview and he made a personal bet with himself that he could somehow be even more ignorant than her. And to Kevin's credit here, to be fair, he is a talk radio, like Rupert Murdoch puppet. Like, talk radio is a Rupert Murdoch project. It's explicitly a fake news outlet. He's literally paid to be wrong. Nigel here has no excuse. Like, Kevin, he's sold out his dignity. He's basically made sure that his legacy in history is going to be alongside people who would be spitting and throwing stones at black children who were attending non-segregated schools in the 1950s. Like, he's going to be like along those guidelines of people who were so aggressively against the progress of history, but he knows that and he's getting paid to do that. Nigel here, no excuse. This guy's just a dick.
Possible because the Doctor comes back in many forms, but that has been a disaster. The fans haven't liked it. Jodie Whittaker, great actress, don't get me wrong, but she has presided over the worst plummet in ratings that Doctor Who has ever seen. It really gets bad audiences.
Okay, we've been over this in videos before. Like, I don't even think it's the worst, like, drop in viewing figures. Like, Tom Baker going from, like, the highest of the highs for season 17 to, like, very, very low viewing figures for his final few stories. Like, more people watched K9 and Company with, like, Elizabeth Sladen and John Leeson as the robot dog, like, Christmas special. More people watched that than Tom Baker, the definitive 7-year Doctor, regenerating Logopolis. Like, I actually don't think that Jodie Whittaker's era has had the lowest drop in, like, the show's history. But even so, the actual numbered drop in Doctor Who has correlated with the general decline of broadcast television drama viewing figures, like, across the board as a whole. You get your exceptions, of course, like your Line of Duties and your big, like, Euro 2020 massive nationwide events where everyone comes together to watch the TV. But in terms of actual, like, audience share and chart placement, Doctor Who is doing equally as well now as it did when it first came back in 2005. Currently, it doesn't quite, like, match the heights between 2008 and 2013, but, like, I know that all of this is, like, lost on Kevin. Like, he doesn't care, he just needs his talking points, but I think it's good to just, like, have the facts out there.
Yeah, she's really not. I mean, she's a good actress, but she isn't really. I don't know.
This is what I think.
Okay. That's very funny. So Nigel, even though he's like, yeah, you know, gay people are, like, predatory to children, he's not quite able to meet Kevin on the women equals bad take. He's like, yeah, she's a good actress, but he's not willing to meet Kevin there. Kevin picks up on that and decides, okay, I've got to butt in. Like, this talking point isn't going anywhere. We're going to change tact. Like I said, Kevin is paid to be wrong. He's paid to have this front. So he senses the narrative is not quite working. Boom, we're changing track.
This is what I think's wrong with her Doctor Who. Is, yes, she's a female, of course. Dare I say that in today's day and age? But she's a female Doctor Who.
We believe she's a female. She has two hearts.
Yeah, but her performance.
I think that was a transphobic joke, but that didn't make much sense, okay? But yeah, I'm very happy that Kevin is just up front. It's like, yeah, she's a woman, therefore bad. Like, refreshing honesty from Kevin, a refreshing peek behind the genuine curtain there.
Is completely derivative. You know, apart from the fact that she's a woman, it could be any other Doctor. You know, a kind of eccentric dresser who wears long scarves and flower and colourful shirts and rather outlandish clothes. You know, and behaves in an eccentric way as well. In other words, the same as every other Doctor. So I don't think
she has to read a script that's, like, straight.
I don't really have anything to say about this. This is, like, Kevin's opinion. If he thinks it's derivative, if it, like, this point is, like, all subjective, like, Kevin's entitled to this opinion, that's fine, whatever. I disagree, but he's entitled to that. No notes.
From The Guardian, though, Kevin, you know, let's not forget that she doesn't just learn lines, she has to learn the message. She has to be on message and work out. Yeah, there's probably warnings now that if you see something on Doctor Who, that there's people out there to help you afterwards, which shouldn't really happen in a Doctor Who thing, I'd have thought.
Okay, firstly, Nigel, you know what the follow-up question is? Such as, what is the message? You know, you're going to have to elaborate here. Like, Nigel, I know that you're talking to Kevin here, so you're talking to the intellectual equivalent of something that my cat would shit in the litter tray. But, you know, if for people who are listening, for people who want to engage with the conversation, you're going to need to bring something more to the table here. But while he doesn't specifically name the episode, I'm thinking that he's talking about Can You Hear Me? Like the episode where they talk about mental health issues and suicide. A pretty mixed bag of an episode, leaning on the good in my opinion, but at the end it had, like, the BBC Direct Line, which honestly they do at the end of any TV show or any episode or broadcastable stuff that even flirts with, like, the conversation of mental health. That's not really an issue, not really worth getting bent up about. But also they did the exact same thing for Vincent and the Doctor, a story that is literally, like, 11 or 12 years old at this point. Like, was this an issue back then, or is it only an issue now because you need a talking point? But it kind of shows just how little Nigel is working with here, where he goes on, like, live TV or live radio or whatever, and all he's got is, you know, Doctor Who is terrible, it's gone downhill, it's all woke. The BBC have put action line stuff at the end of the credits of one episode one time. Like, okay? Is that all you've got?
Well, no. How much longer has she got to go, Jodie Whittaker? Because I keep hearing she's quit. But
she's quitting at the end of this year.
She keeps coming back.
Yeah, well,
Okay, Kevin O'Sullivan, I think he used to be a TV or media critic. Like in the last Talk Radio video, he talked about like going to a press screening or an early screening of Voyage of the Damned. So I think he's playing dumb here, but the fact that he's willing to like go on his own show and basically admit, I do not understand the concept of an actor leaving a role and those episodes being broadcast a few months later is very funny to me.
she's meant to be quitting. The TARDIS is ejecting her. There's 2 more specials this year, and then apparently her and Chris Chibnall, who also has had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra, is also due to be departing. And then we can only speculate on what the BBC will come up with for the next Doctor. Will it be a woman? Will it be a man? Will it be, well, who knows what it could be?
Well, that guy was in the It's a Sin was being touted as the next Doctor, wasn't he?
Yes,
and of course, Russell T Davies wrote It's a Sin, so that's a possibility.
And, why not?
Well, I guess not. But traditional fans, I think that they've been ignored for a long time, and they don't like this. They just want sort of space-age plot lines about... wherever it is that Doctor Who comes from and all that stuff.
He can't even begin to care. Like, he knows that he's got nothing here. He's just like, traditional fans don't care. Doctor Who is about whatever Doctor... Like, he's got nothing here. And also, what is a traditional fan? Like, this... Yeah, I know this is just dumb gatekeepy language, but yeah, he's got nothing. And he knows he's got nothing, which makes it even funnier.
But everything has to have
the
a meaning.
Daleks and the cyber people, I guess they're now called, not cyber men. That's
Cyber
sexist, I imagine.
Like, the Cybermen in the last series were called the Cybermen. Like, they just invented things to get angry at. Like, this is just conservatism 101. Like, it's that meme where the guy's riding the bike and he puts the stick in it and he's like, oh, damn it. I got in my own way. I got upset at something that I just made up and did.
I watched a couple, and one of them they went back to the 1960s, I think, early 60s, and it was Rosa Parks. There was another one making some slavery thing.
Of course.
Every episode have to have some sort of message. And then,
Yeah, like, okay, so Doctor Who, the Jodie Whittaker, Chris Chibnall era, has had, 30 episodes? And all they've got is Rosa Parks and something slavery. Like, he could be talking about Planet of the Ood in 2008. Like, so is, the fractious mind of Nigel Pawley, where he's so disconnected from reality. He could have genuinely watched an episode from Series 4 and just not have known.
Of course.
Every episode have to have some sort of message. And then, just go and fight the Daleks.
Yes, go and fight the Daleks, those famously apolitical villains who were definitely not based off of a political party that had only tried to exterminate a vast portion of the world less than 2 decades before the story was broadcast. Yeah, go back to those old apolitical days. Jesus Christ.
Fight the cyber people.
Yes, those famously apolitical Cybermen, which are definitely not some sort of cultural commentary about uniformity or state-mandated, medical procedures or something.
Fight whatever, the potato-headed things. That's really what you want, Kevin, isn't it?
Yes, the Sontarans, those definitely not colonialist potato men.
Just want to have a little bit of scary stuff. See the Daleks exterminate a few people. The Doctor comes in, wins, and everyone goes home for some tea.
The Doctor saves the universe yet again in the nick of time.
Kevin and Nigel have just verbatim described the plot of Resolution and Eve of the Daleks. Those stories, they're inherently political because they've got the Daleks in them. There's no escaping the connotations there. But yeah, we want Jodie Whittaker's era to not be so political, so they give them what they want with those Dalek stories, and they just don't care. They just, whatever.
Good talk. Hot talk. Bold talk.
So yeah, that's the end of the segment. That was very, very fun. But there was something early on that Nigel said that really, really intrigued me. I want to hear it again.
I find the innocence of childhood being lost, actually, that the fact that you have to sexualise a programme like Doctor Who rather than just have scary monsters and a bit of escapism.
So Kevin and Nigel categorically do not care about the innocence of children. They're conservative, of course they don't. It's like MP Nick Fletcher, we did a video on him before, claiming that women being on TV cause men to commit crimes and stabbings. Nick Fletcher does not care about men's rights because he upholds the institutions and the austerity that causes crime and disproportionate male suicide and crime rates. He just knows that, this is a culture war talking point that, you've got so many single issue voters that it's all about using these buzzwords to cling on to power. If Kevin and Nigel really did care about children and children's innocence, they would not be conservatives. Conservatives who cripplingly underfund youth centres, schools, they don't improve wages, so that millions of children live in poverty and rely on food banks, and they don't want the NHS to be funded because they don't want children receiving paediatric care or sex education. And one reason that these things do not get funded, apart from, Tory austerity, is also because of tax dodgings. There's no money to fund these things. And lest we forget, this controversy on Talk Radio is happening around the time that our Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, and his wife have been found to be evading tax for years through loopholes. So we have billionaires married to millionaires working in government to make sure that they do not pay taxes whilst raising taxes on the most vulnerable. 1 in 3 children in the UK live in poverty, with millions upon millions of them relying on food banks and growing up in a cripplingly underfunded state. That is actual harm to children's innocence. Kevin and Nigel, through their politics, have demonstrably done more harm to the children and their innocence in the UK than Jodie Whittaker and Mandip Gill exchanging heartfelt glances on BBC One on New Year's Day. Like 1,000-fold. And what's especially astonishing is that, much like the Rishi Sunak tax dodging controversy, this controversy here with Talk Radio and Doctor Who wokeism is also happening at the same time that a former Conservative MP for Wakefield, Imran Ahmad Khan, has been found guilty of sexually assaulting a minor. But these people do not give a damn about protecting children and their innocence. Like, if you go on Talk Radio's YouTube channel, there is no section here talking about Rishi Sunak and his tax dodging. There is no section here on the Wakefield MP, sexually molesting children. You go back weeks and it's trans goalie joins women's football team, Elon Musk blocking people on Twitter, Sharon Davis talking about transphobes, lockdown damage, war on woke, the transgender band, BBC Three and RuPaul and stuff like that, anti-BBC again, Julia Hartley-Brewer's take on trans conversion therapy. To be fair, Talk Radio do also upload their full 2 to 3 hour shows as well in their entirety, so maybe they have talked about these things on those shows proper. However, it's not important enough for them or their audience to actually make segments about them and clip them on their own YouTube channel. What they clip on their YouTube channel shows where the priorities are. Women are being wiped out of existence. Ian hits out the council for gender-neutral toilets. Slams health and safety fears over daffodils. What? Elon Musk's stake in Twitter, incredible moment for free speech. Kevin takes on campaigners claim fracking causes earthquakes. Dr. David Bull hits out at new NHS COVID symptoms list. White working class men are the most disadvantaged group in Britain. Once again, these people do not care about men's rights because they're conservatives. Kevin O'Sullivan hits out at woke council for cancelling daffodils. There's no video on tax dodging billionaires. There's no video on conservative paedophiles. But there are 2 videos on the span of the past week and a half talking about daffodils. But tell you what, I've got time tonight. I'll bite. Let's see what Kevin O'Sullivan has to say about council cancelling daffodils.
Headquarters of common sense. Talk Radio.
That will never not be funny. Headquarters of common sense. You're yelling at daffodils, Kevin.
You got any recipes for daffodils? Because in St. Blaise...
Okay, who's Charlie Lawson? Charles Lawson, Charlie Lawson, is an actor from Northern Ireland, best known for playing Jim McDonald in Coronation Street.
Cornwall, the local council has banned daffodils in case people pick them and eat them. What is going wrong in this country, Charlie?
Can you imagine if this was 1939? We would be scared of offending Hitler. It is incredible. I mean, I want...
Okay, saying, we'd be scared of offending Hitler is kind of in poor taste, because the current Conservative government, and specifically Boris Johnson, is doing everything in his power to have a good relationship with Vladimir Putin, who is currently engaging in an illegal annexation and invasion of Ukraine. So believe it or not, Charlie Lawson is actually onto something here, but it's not the point he thinks he's making.
But daffodil, in the name of all that's holy, and you see, I didn't swear there, but
but you will. I know you will.
No, it makes me want to. It makes me despair of this great country of ours. What in the name of Jesus are we doing? What do we really think that this is achieving anything? Who are these people that decided it was too dangerous to let daffodils grow?
Okay, let's find out, because we have no context here. Like, apart from, you know, councillors in Cornwall, we have. Let's find out. Let's learn about Cornwall, kids. Okay, so we've got an article from the Metro. Council cuts down 1,000 daffodils in play area because children might eat them. Vexed locals in Cornwall have branded their town council bonkers after thousands of daffodils were cut down in a play area due to health and safety fears. Officials in St. Blythe's Town Council have warned the flowers can be poisonous if eaten and could give children diarrhea. Okay, so cards on the table here. I do think this is quite dumb. Like, unless there's some sort of genuine endemic of, like, very, very dumb people, like, deciding to eat daffodils, or maybe there's been a bunch of recent cases of, like, dogs going out for walks in the parks, like, eating the daffodils because it's poisonous to animals as well, of course. Like, unless there is some sort of, like, proven track record of this stuff happening, then, yeah, this is a dumb decision. So who has decided to do this? Is it the woke lefties of Cornwall? Is it the bloody Green parties or the Labour that have decided to take action here to get rid of this non-existent problem? No, it turns out if you look at all of the constituencies in Cornwall, they are all Conservative run. Camborne and Redruth, North Cornwall, St Ives, South East Cornwall, St Austell and Newquay, Truro and Falmouth, they are all Conservative MPs here. Oh no, Kevin, oh no, Charlie, the wokeness is coming from inside the house. A spokesman for South West Health Protection Unit confirmed daffodils can be toxic to eat, but added that most people fully recover without treatment. Someone on social media quipped, daffodils are also poisonous to dogs, even my mutt has the common sense not to eat them. So yeah, this is dumb. However, this is not wokeness gone mad, this is Conservative ineptitude. Because in the past couple of weeks, Conservatives have decided to tackle the obesity epidemic in this country, not by getting people out of poverty, which is one of the main reasons people do become obese, because they're eating unhealthy food, not by giving them better wages or lessening their hours so they've got more time to cook well-prepared and healthy meals, and not even by funding leisure centres and sports and activity centres so that people have more things to do physically and they can do communal activities with each other in communal sports. No, they decided to make it a legal requirement for restaurants to put calories on their menu, which is something that all, like, the medical consensus and the sociological consensus is pretty, like, firm on. That does nothing to help tackle obesity. In fact, it's actually known to exacerbate eating disorders because it makes you fixate on numbers. You don't get to the root cause of obesity or eating disorders or anorexia. You exacerbate the issue, but you have to be seen to be doing something because it is a virtue signal. This move from the council to cut down 1,000 daffodils, this move by the council is just to be like, yeah, we're doing something. It's a non-existent problem. We have to justify our exorbitant MP salaries, so we're going to chop down the daffodils. That's what this is. Will Kevin and Charlie get the point? I doubt it. Like, woke council, like, what? Woke just means anything nowadays, doesn't it? Like, anything is woke.
I don't know, but I think they're mad. But you laugh, we laugh about it. But you're right; it's a serious issue. Too many people in this country are kind of insanely woke. You know, not even the
These are
stupidest
Conservative
kid in Britain
MPs.
eats daffodils, and yet they think that not only kids but adults too. Well, oh, look at those yellow flowers. I must eat them. It's ridiculous. You might as well ban trees in case people walk into them.
Yeah, it is
it's
dumb.
An awful
Maybe don't vote Conservative then.
symptom, Kevin, and you and I know this. Across the pond 3 years ago, whatever, an awful incident happened. And for some reason, our floodgates of whatever woke up in this country. And the people wandering about, sitting in tunnels, picking their noses, suddenly realised that the world was their oyster. And
What?
in my book,
Who?
our great United Kingdom, Great Britain, or whatever you want to call it, thank the Lord, Belfast is fairly normal. I mean, if you went over there and were told that you had to order a plough person's lunch, I'll tell you, you'd very quickly get a boot up the sharp
Plow
end.
person.
Okay, that plow person thing, that was done as a joke, like, to piss people like Kevin and Charlie off, and they've completely fallen for the bait. They've fallen for the bait.
People around the planet are laughing their nuts off at us.
Well, yeah, and you know, Boris Johnson stepped up to the plate when it comes to Ukraine.
Okay, that's one hell of a junction, but stepped up to the plate with it when it comes to Ukraine. First things first, like, Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party are like they are in Russian pockets. Like, there is so much like dirty money in London and in Conservative like constituencies and Conservative MPs that London is nicknamed Londongrad because there's so much Russian money and Russian influence there. And the initial wave of sanctions against Russia that Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party did were so tepid that the Russian economy saw it as a sign of endorsement for what they were doing to Ukraine, and their economy actually jumped up for the day because our response was so weak. Russia interpreted it as an endorsement for the Ukraine invasion. Russian meddling was found to have happened during the Brexit referendum in the 2019 general election, and there's been a report done proving it, but the Conservative Party have not released it, and of course they won't release it. Like, Kevin's just, he said one sentence in this junction. We are like a millimetre down this other divergent strand of the conversation, and he's already completely off the chain wrong.
There's no doubt that Putin's decision to invade Ukraine was based on the fact that he perceived that the West, particularly Britain, was ridiculous, woke and weak. And frankly, he was right.
Kevin is committing treason here. No, he's doing the Tucker Carlson line. You know, like, Putin's never called me racist. Putin's never tried to cancel me. Kevin is talking about fascism apologia. He's trying to justify the invasion, the illegal invasion of Ukraine. Like, we are less than 3 minutes into a video about woke council cancelling daffodils, and we're talking about... and we're doing fascism apologia for Vladimir Putin. Like, what the Kevin, what are you doing? And poor Charlie here, he's just a legendary soap actor from Coronation Street, and now he has to go down this direction with Kevin. He can't break from the script. He can't, speak against the echo chamber. What, Charlie, what are you gonna do? Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this situation. I actually think those Cornwall councillors might have been onto something, worried about stupid people eating daffodils. If you told Kevin that eating them would upset the lefties and appease Vladimir Putin, he'd scoff them down. I think that these MPs in Cornwall, they took that decision for his own safety, should Kevin ever visit Cornwall.
Yes, he was, and it's just common sense that states that. I mean, look, hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Charlie's dove in. Yeah. Fascism apologia. Yeah, let's go for it.
It seems apparent that had we done something a little more positive a month ago or whatever, we would have kicked his you-know-what. But that's for speculation and all.
Okay, Charlie, I don't think he might do. I'm absolutely fine with actors talking politics. Everyone can talk politics. Like, everyone should have a seat at the table in terms of like the conversation. That doesn't mean that their ideas are inherently good, but we can hear them out. Like, so Charlie might not know the geopolitical situation around NATO and Russia that has been brewing for like the past 40 years, but if we kicked Russia's you-know-what, that is World War III. Like, if it's boots on the ground in Ukraine or in Russia, that is World War III.
But this country is disappointing me on a continual basis. And
with you there.
Right, we have freedom of speech, and Daddy fought for that and all the rest of it, so we can shove a camera down a tunnel. There's a load of idiots hanging off Tower Bridge as we speak.
I can see them almost, literally just from the studio here.
I'm presuming he's talking about like Extinction Rebellion or another environmental protest. Like, the directions that this video that started on daffodils, like, oh god, this is going, like, this is taking many pivots.
Entertainment industry, a great actor, Jim McDonald, still a legendary character, so he is. What did you make of Disney, the greatest entertainment corporation on earth?
And now we're talking Disney. Like, okay, woke daffodils, Russia apologia, Disney. What is this video? Like I said, Kevin is paid to be wrong. He's paid to be a Rupert Murdoch right-wing puppet. So I'm assuming he must have like been given like a list of notes at the beginning of the day. Like, Kevin, you can do whatever you want on your show, but you have to hit these talking points. No matter who you bring on, no matter what the topic is, you gotta justify Putin. You gotta praise Boris Johnson's actions on it. You gotta talk about Disney. You gotta talk about woke people. Like credit to Kevin. Like, he's sticking to the script. He's sticking to the narrative. He's hitting these points. Bam, 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 bam. He He's doing the NPC, like, dialogue tree equivalent of, like, oh, I'm trying to speed run the game, but I have to hit through all the dialogue options. So, fast forward them, bam, 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 bam.
What did you make of their decision that from now on, all of their fictional characters, half of them will be I'm going to get these letters right, LGBTQIA, and if you go to one of their theme parks, Disneyland, Disney World...
Okay, Kevin, this is what we call in the industry a fucking lie. So the actual statement from Disney made over the past couple of weeks is that half of all of their characters across the whole Walt Disney conglomerate, shall we say, have to be LGBTQIA or racial minorities. Okay? And considering that straight white men equate for, like, what, 10 to 12% of the world population, and Disney is, like, a near worldwide company, I think that's a fair cut. I think the math checks out there. So, yeah, Kevin is just flat out lying here. I like how he pretended to, like, look at his... Okay, I'm going to look at my notes to get all these initials right, because, he's a broadcaster. The concept of letters apparently seems to escape him. But if he's looking at notes, like, if you read 3 words after those string of letters, you'll find "and racial minority." Like, he knows that he's lying here. So that 50% that Kevin has inaccurately described includes characters like May from Turning Red, includes characters like the family Madrigal from Encanto, includes characters like Moana from Moana. It also includes characters like Maui, also from Moana. It includes characters like, Black Panther, played by the late great Chadwick Boseman. It includes, characters and actors from the MCU, like Anthony Mackie, Michael Pena, Pom Klementoff, Samuel L. Jackson, Gemma Chan, Don Cheadle, Zoe Saldana. Like, that's part of the 50% as well. But Kevin doesn't focus on the racial aspect. That is a part of the conversation that Kevin is not willing to have. He's willing to do some sort of misdirection because LGBTQIA people are, in Kevin's perspective, the demographic that it is okay to discriminate against, at least in the context of this conversation.
Will be I'm going to get these letters right, LGBTQIA, and if you go to one of their theme parks, Disneyland, Disney World, etc., you will no longer be addressed as ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. You'll be called dreamers and friends. I mean, what is going on there? That's wokery gone mad as well, isn't it?
Like, that last bit's fine. Like, whatever, fine. Okay. Like, imagine, like, this is your job, just pretending to be mad about stuff that does not matter. Like, they've talked about, like, the war in Ukraine. Like, there's the whole backdrop we've said before about, like, a Wakefield MP being convicted for, like, paedophilia, Rishi Sunak dodging taxes, the cost of living crisis spiraling out of control, poverty running rampant. And no, Kevin and Charlie are here just getting mad at Disney, calling people who attend their theme parks dreamers of all ages. Like, imagine having so little to actually be mad and upset about that this is what gets you out of bed in the morning and this is what you're compelled to talk about on your own radio show.
It's just, if I could say this with the tiniest bit of authority, my gay friends, of which I have quite a few, are completely and utterly furious with all this nonsense.
Okay, to Charlie's credit here, now, Kevin has given him a inaccurate framing of the question. Like, the 50% figure that Kevin has come up with also includes racial minorities. Like, so Charlie has received an incorrect framing of the question. And to Charlie's credit, maybe he's just going to take Kevin's word on it. Like, Kevin is a pathological liar, like, so I wouldn't really take his word on anything. Like, if he told me right now that it was raining, I would genuinely go outside to double check. And because he's on talk radio, he has to maintain the echo chamber. He can't also say, oh yeah, but Kevin, but that 50% number also includes racial minority. Like, he can't do the pushback. It's why Charlie's been brought on. You've got to maintain the narrative.
And may I say, live on air to you, Kevin, that Sharon Davis is fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
And she's on her own, and she's getting some god's awful abuse from idiots on social media.
Okay, so Charlie just goes on, like, live TV and just announces himself as profoundly transphobic. Okay, I honestly, because I know he's, like, working on Coronation Street and stuff like that, I hope that there's no members of the LGBTQIA plus community working on Coronation Street, because Charlie being there, being transphobic and willing to spout this stuff on radio, maybe that's not a safe workplace for those people. Like, if I was a producer working on Coronation Street or on basically just any set or workplace that that Charlie Lawson was going to be on, having watched this interview clip, I could not in good conscience continue on with that job without putting on the risk assessment that Charlie Lawson is, like, a bigoted person that might make that workplace unsafe for those marginalised groups. Like it's a basic duty of care for people who would be working on that set to let them know that Charlie does not agree with their existence or their civil rights. Like, I'm not saying fire Charlie or cancel Charlie or whatever, but, like, when you're a producer, you've got a duty of care to your, like, crew members and to the people who work under you. So it's, you kind of have to do it. And remember, this is happening in a similar time frame to Kevin having a guest on who was saying that same-sex relationships are predatory towards children. Like, you know, they run in very similar social circles, shall we say. They kind of pick the people who are going to be on talk radio very carefully because they know that that's the line that they're at.
Sharon, of course, Sharon Davis, the Olympic swimmer, who was on my show a couple of weeks ago, saying that biological males should not be allowed to compete in female sports. Totally agree with you, Charlie. Listen, we haven't had enough time to talk properly. Tell you what, will you come on to my show during next week in the evening? We'll have a good...
This 5-minute video is absolutely bonkers. Like, going from cancelling daffodils from a woke conservative council, then going to Vladimir Putin apology, a fascism apology. Maybe he was right to do what he's doing to Ukraine, talking about woke Disney, LGBTQ plus issues, and now trans rights and stuff like that. Like, this, like, he, like, to Kevin's credit, he hit those talking points in that 5-minute window. Like, credit where credit's due, I guess. So yeah, that was a wild trip. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. Starting it, I did not expect it to go in so many directions. That was absolutely buck wild. I have received an email notification letting me know that my complaint to Ofcom has been received. Like I said, I've copied and pasted my complaint to them down below. I'll put a link to their website as well. So yeah, all of those links are down below, because regardless of whether or not you like agree with the direction of Doctor Who or whatever, like, that was like unambiguous hate speech. That was like unambiguous like incitement and dog whistling and saying that same-sex relationships are inherently like predatory to children, and then Kevin just doesn't do anything to challenge. In fact, he like continues to provoke that line of questioning in the conversation. Yeah, absolutely despicable behavior, deplorable behavior that you just, you kind of expect that from Kevin. But yeah, these are the type of arguments that we kind of expect from Kevin on talk radio. He's the reason why, we have warning labels. He's the reason why they had to chop down the daffodils in case he went walking around in those parks and saw something colourful he had to eat up in order to spite the wokies or whatever.